Okay, this is the third video on how to write an essay. In each previous video, we focused on a specific kind of essay. And the first video is how to write a personal observation essay. In the second video, how to do a reader response essay. In this video, we're going to focus on how to write a critical analysis essay. So let's get started. In all the previous videos, I started by defining what that type of essay is. Now, just because I'm using these terms critical analysis or critical analyses doesn't mean it can't be used a different way, or it might mean something different. But this is a kind of writing. It might have a different name to explain the same thing. But basically, this is an essay that uses a process of criticism to analyze something. This is extremely common when it comes to an essay. I'm calling it critical analyses. Specifically, when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about the author of an essay is looking at something else that someone else has produced and is using criticism to analyze it, right? You can find that in probably just about any kind of essay, but we're talking about one writing about something else. In this case, probably a written text. Okay, so how do you actually write this kind of essay? Well, I'm going to point out four things. One, you're going to use a process of analysis, just like I've said. You are going to develop a thesis statement. You're going to identify evidence to support that thesis, and then you're going to go through and write your argument. Now, three of those steps should sound really familiar because they're what you do with just about any essay, right? So we'll talk about it in the context of a critical analysis essay. A lot of this is going to sound like review because it is. So let's get started. All right, so when you're writing a critical analysis essay, you need to use a process to help you to go about criticizing the work, whether it's a movie, it's a poem, it's a short story, it's another essay, a speech. Whatever it is you're analyzing, using a process will help you to go through the steps to be effective, to be logical, and efficient and thorough, right? Okay, so you need to look at what the author's claims are, look at how or she presents those claims, and go through all the different rhetorical strategies, the methods that they use, and then look at them for how effective they are. I talked about this in the previous video on how to analyze an argument. You can look back on that, and that'll help you to go through this process that I'm talking about. Having done that, then you need to come to a reasoned decision yourself. After you've done the work, you've taken notes, you've read critically, you've analyzed the argument, you come to a conclusion. Okay, this is what I think about that. Great. You need to be able to identify what your thesis statement is because you're going to be presenting your thoughts to someone else, and you need to be effective and efficient when you do it. So you need to be able to identify a thesis. After you've come to a conclusion, you need to be able to take that thesis, write it as a concise sentence that articulates your own claim about the source. When you've done that, then you, like previous reader, you're making a promise that you need to keep. And everything you say from that point on needs to justify that thesis that you've made. So if you're saying so-and-so's essay is flawed because blah yada yada yada, then you need to be able to explain blah yada 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 to prove your point, right? Or if you say it's a persuasive argument, but it forgets this, then you point that out. Or if you're saying it's a great argument because of this, whatever, right? You can analyze something critically without agreeing with it 100% or disagreeing with it 100%. There could be a gray area. You just need to be clear where you stand and be able to explain your point clearly and effectively. So once you've done that, you need to be able to identify the evidence that you're going to use to support your thesis. So what quotes, summaries, paraphrases from the text or maybe another source can you bring in to justify the point that you're trying to make? Then you need to make sure that you're using an effective process, whether the other author did or didn't. That's irrelevant because you can always be effective yourself, right? So because you're trying to come at this from a place of authority, you need to use a strong, thorough, effective process. You are less persuasive when you just seem like you're pointing out negative things, but you're not doing it in an organized way. Or if you're not justifying it or using examples to back it up. You just seem like you're whiny. You're like, well, I don't like this because, well, no one's going to listen to you, right? But if you can say, I do not agree with this, or this is not effective because, and you explain it, it's really hard to argue. You can say, we can agree to disagree. I don't agree with your interpretation, but you cannot say someone didn't think through it or they didn't defend it if they did. Make sense? So, once you've done that, you've thought about it critically, you've come up with your argument, you've found evidence to support it, then you need to use everything you've come up with to defend it, right? So if you've written an outline to organize your thoughts, do that. If you've brought in other sources, great, bring those in. You need to just follow through and make sure as you write that you are trying to defend your thesis, that you know what it is, and that everything you say helps to prove that point while still being logical and avoiding logical fallacies yourself. We need to be aware of what we promise and be able to deliver on those promises. Don't make an argument that you cannot justify or that you cannot support or prove. If you can't, then just be careful with your words. Make sure that you can follow through with whatever it is that you're saying. And remember, you don't have to say everything there could be said, because each essay has to have a beginning and an end, and it cannot talk about everything possible in the universe. You have to narrow it down. So it's very simple. In your thesis statement, you can follow it up with a sentence, which is called a statement of methodology, not important for now, but basically where you explain what you will talk about and what you won't talk about. So you stay focused. And just make sure you don't talk about anything else. Talk about what your point is, and don't get off track. Just because you come up with a great sentence doesn't mean it has to stay if it doesn't help to prove your point. That being said, your point should be reasoned and it should be correct and accurate. In this class, I'm not going to make you argue a point that you don't agree with, though when you think about something rhetorically, you understand that the argument and the person are not the same. Someone can say something that they don't agree with, or lying wouldn't be possible, right? And even though someone believes it doesn't make it true. So we have to understand that someone's thoughts and who they are not the same. And the same goes for you. Be able to look at things for what they are and not just for who's saying them, like we talked about in the previous video, and make an effective, clear, efficient argument. If you do that, you make sure that there's no mistakes. That's all I can ask, or any other teacher can really ask for. So think about these steps as you go about writing your essays. And if you have any questions, ask me in the forum below. Thank you for watching.